I'd like to talk to you about domestic abuse. Not the dramatic kind we hear about on TV, not the kind that makes it into the movies. You know, woman screaming, man running around being violent. I'm talking about a more ordinary domestic abuse. I'm getting divorced. I just got him out of my house. It's been 17 years, and I'd like to tell you about it. Um, Try to do it. Try not to go on too many sidetracks. For example, I stopped enjoying a lot of the things I enjoy in life because it irritated him. It wasn't that I was afraid. You know, yeah, he'd go off yelling and swearing and gesticulating, but I wasn't afraid of him. Little part, that the animal brain in me was like, what if he turns around and hits me? But I was like, you know what? If he does, then that's over. Then I'm going to call the police, get a peace warrant. Because I've been trying to get out of the marriage. I'd been trying to get out of the marriage for after the first, pretty well after the honeymoon. I'd been trying to solve the problem. I started out trying to fix the person, and then I worked towards trying to leave the person, and then I got ridiculously sick and died. The abuse killed me, and my second life began. I had a totem of undying in one paw, and I woke up a man instead of a woman, and I've been fighting to get rid of him since. And at the same time, just kind of like not quite, like not going as far as I have to go to make it work, because thinking, well, if we can find an equilibrium, a place where I can live, then, So I was always picking my battles, and that's the thing that was the phrase that inspired this video. When you pick your battles, that's the margin in which they operate. You give them that margin. You say, I'm tired. Let him have it. That's what he's counting on. And in fact, he's engineering tired. And today I just suddenly thought, what if he's the one that kept calling the city over and over again all these times, trying to get rid of my boss? Maybe he actually is engineering a crisis where he can come to my rescue, and or a situation where he can take more power over me. And one of the offshoots of all the calls to the city was that I stopped talking to neighbors at all. So it successfully isolated me. So if it was him, and I'll never know, that would be the sort of thing that an abusive person can do. Taking things and hiding them, that's a big one, very popular. You're always losing things, and then you blame me. It's like, I never lost anything until you showed up. I knew where everything was. I always knew where everything was. And I might misplace a small item, but I understood that I had misplaced it. Like right now, I can't find my cheap tripod. I remember, though, that it was in my way, and I moved it someplace out of my way, very much out of my way, on account of I couldn't imagine needing it, and it was very much in the way, and I got a lot going on. So I put it somewhere out of the way. That's the kind of misplacing I do. But it was on the counter, and when I turned around to use it next, it wasn't on the counter. It's not the kind of misplacing I do. So that's gaslighting. And I'm walking around my home reinstalling things like my silly Star Trek door noise. I love it. And when I'm getting ready to go out, it can be a bit much because it goes off every time I lean forward to grab something, so I turn it off. But himself, no. It wasn't turn it off and then I'm going to have to turn it on, or turn it off and then turn it on when you leave. No. It was like, rant, scream, swear. And put it on me to solve his problem with my thing. It was 17 years of that. The only time he was ever nice to me was to prepare me, to get me off guard, to start another campaign of I don't even know. And I don't understand it, why people are like that. But the point is, you don't Fred and Wilma Flintstone this. Wilma was an abuse victim. So was the Honeymooners. And in fact, the people who wrote those two comedies knew very well that they were writing a domestic abuse scene. Personally, I think it's because they wanted to condition us to tolerate more narcissism in our society. But whatever the reason, it has caused us to overlook the kind of domestic abuse that still can kill. It kills with stress. Stress killed me. I know, you're looking at me and you're saying, oh, come on. In my mind, the feminine side of me, I've always been trans and I've always been a man inside, but because of the pressure of society, I created a woman persona. I was trying to perform gender and I was creating a woman, and she's dead. She wasn't strong enough. She wasn't strong enough to take it. She died of cancer. She got sick and she died. And in my mind, that would have been different if she had had a partner who actually loved her. She would not have died. I would not have transitioned if my partner had loved me. I would have just enjoyed being his wife. There was a whole lot about being a wife that didn't bother me at all. I'm quite sure that if I had been born, if I'd been assigned male at birth and if I'd been raised male, there's a strong possibility I would have been part of the gay community. I enjoy a lot of things that people would have called gay. And I enjoy the company of men, which unfortunately, as a woman, I wasn't allowed to. I wasn't allowed to enjoy it. I was allowed to enjoy it if I was willing to be a fallen woman, but I wasn't allowed to enjoy it as just the company of men. The company of men for a woman automatically means you're a slut, unfortunately. And then no, I just prefer the company of men. And it's just the different way of approaching conversations and interactions that men have that suit my nature better. It's one of the reasons I'm trans. But nevertheless, I enjoy cooking and baking and cleaning, and I have a very good, keen head for getting to know what people's likes and dislikes are. And I mean, I came into this relationship ready to employ all that in his favor to give him an easier life and in return receive an easier life. And because he's an abuser, and it's not my problem to understand why, I tried long and hard and I shouldn't have waited. Don't waste your time healing them. I know they're hurting. I know. But they're not hurting. They're only hurting on the surface. Everything is a performance because they have buried their true self. They have buried their true self as dead and gone in the grave. And the person they are now is all they're ever going to be. And it's not your problem to worry about if they can be other and if they can change, because that's the margin in which they operate. That's the place they do their work. That's what they're taking advantage of. Your desire to be your best self and to share that with everyone is exactly what the abuser is using against you. When someone poo-poos you, dismisses you, tells you it's all in your head, engineers reasons to fight, starts a fight before even having a reasonable conversation, does things behind your back rather than talking to you, and then acts like you shouldn't be upset about the fact that they didn't discuss it with you because it would have been okay with you anyway, right? It's like the things you took, you could have had if you just said, hey, I want to take blah, 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 blah. And I'd have said, yeah, everything except this one. And you knew that, and that's why you took this one. And that's what abusers do. You're going into it reasonable, and that's the lever that they're using. And you just cannot get anywhere because that's not where they're at. You're not a therapist. You're looking for love, not a project. So that's words to my younger self. But my younger self would have gone ahead and did it anyway. And would I go back and change it with my knowledge now? I can't really say I would, because I kind of knew, and yet I thought I was stronger than that, and I thought it was worth it. And for a long time, one of the ways I consoled myself was I just kept saying it's better than welfare. I'm a vulnerable, disabled person. This is what he took advantage of, my vulnerability. I'm disabled. I'm puts me in a tight spot, and he took advantage of that. And really, my situation before he came was pretty harsh. I was really, really suffering. I didn't realize that he was just going to change the flavor of the suffering. It was just not going to be better overall, but it felt better. And this lamp, this knife, this knife, the scissors, the yarn for the sweater, and so much more as I walk around my house and look that I couldn't have had without his income. And then I remember the $60,000 mortgage that paid for most of it. And I go like, well, I couldn't have had that without his income either. They don't give you a mortgage loan if you don't have an income. So there's it's hard to say that I wouldn't do it again. I did it for the money. And I knew I was doing it for the money. I guess he did too. And that's what made it justified in his mind. I didn't deserve more because I did it for the money. I really wanted to do it for the love. I just didn't have the love to do it for. I had the love. He didn't. I would have done it for love, but it wasn't the arrangement that he was willing to settle for. So I did it for the money. And that justified his abuse in his mind, I guess. I don't know. I don't think he has to justify it. I think he does a pile of virtue signaling to make up for it. It's like people who go to church and then rape children at night. This thing would be so demonetized right now if I had a monetized channel. But no, I need 1,000 subscribers and 1,000 hours of view time, and there's a certain freedom in that. Anyways, abuse. It can be very subtle. Gaslighting. Dismissing your feelings. Making you change and not be yourself because it's annoying. I call them red flags, but frankly, they are the abuse. They're not red flags of abuse to come. They are the abuse. You are an amazing person. You are an amazing person when you are yourself. When you just fully, lively, happily, joyfully express yourself, you and me are all amazing people. And the people who aren't amazing are the abusers who do not joyfully express themselves. The only joy they take is the pain of others. And we don't understand that. And we can't, because it's crazy. It is madness. It's caused by trauma. I could go on and on all day about the trauma caused, but why is that my problem? You know, I can make it my problem, but I don't have to. And they can try to make it your problem, but it's still not actually your problem. You can care. You don't have to. You really don't. And you're not a less virtuous person for not caring about someone when it isn't reciprocal. You know, Wilma Flintstone and romance, that stuff was all engineered for us. All of those romantic things that keep us in abusive relationships were engineered for us by other abusive people who have a lot of power, because abusive people go for power and they often gain quite a bit of it. They use their tactics to get there. And when they have that power, they turn around and spread their message. They disseminate. And in this case, the media companies are rife with abusers. And we are discovering that as more and more criminal charges come out and more, you know, the Me Too movement is showing us how many abusers there are in the media system. And they are creating media that normalizes abusive behavior. Sitcoms, the jokes in those sitcoms, especially if you go back to the 80s, go back to the 70s and 80s and look at how people spoke to each other. You will be reeling with how nasty they were. That was to normalize abusive behavior. And it continues to this day. Now, mom is the one who's supposed to be scary. If you haven't noticed, daddy's running around now wanting to please mom and wanting to make sure mom's happy and oh no, don't make any noise, and oh no, we spilled something, and it's all to sell appliances. But it's not. The appliance is not the message. The appliance is the medium. The message is the story, is in the story they're telling. And they're splitting us apart from each other. They're teaching us to tolerate unpleasant people and to be less pleasant ourselves, rather than putting unpleasant people in their place and being more pleasant ourselves. So just stop making excuses for yourself and for them. Make your choices. Live your choices. Don't blame someone else. And don't continue any longer if you can possibly stop. I finally got strong enough to stop it. I'm free. It's not over, but it's mostly over.